Hello, and welcome to SUSECON Digital 2022. My name is Alan Epps, and I'll be your presenter today for BOV 1102, SUSE Manager, Liberty Linux, and the CentOS Challenge. The agenda today is pretty straightforward. We're going to do a quick introduction. We'll talk about the CentOS Challenge itself, talk about the current CentOS lifecycle as it exists, the SUSE Liberty Linux CentOS lifecycle and how it differs, how SUSE Manager and Liberty Linux can play together in your CentOS and Red Hat environments, how SUSE keeps you compliant and patched within that CentOS and Red Hat environment, and then some additional benefits. So who am I? I'm an SE partner, SE for the Western US for SUSE. I've spent 30 years as a sysadmin, an engineer, as an architect, actually in the field before I moved to the vendor side of the fence. And I'm an avid motorcyclist. Like it says there, I've got 5 of them down in the garage at the moment. So what is the CentOS Challenge? The reality is that Red Hat changed the game partway through last year and said that CentOS was going to die as of December 31st, 2021, as far as a point-in-time image, and was going to move to a rolling release. That's the constantly iterating release that can update daily or weekly, and becomes very problematic to run in a production or near production environment because it's changing so quickly it no longer looks like your production if you're running into issues later. CentOS 6 died as of 2020, and CentOS 7 support ends as in 2024. Our offering with Liberty Linux is significantly different, and we'll get to those timeframes. What does this actually mean to businesses and enterprises that are running CentOS now in that production or near production environment where they didn't need 24/7 support? Well, it kind of puts them in the cone of shame, right? They built the business and they engineered their process around this tool that now Red Hat has kind of yanked the rug out from underneath them. So what do we offer instead? With SUSE Liberty Linux, we offer patching for CentOS 6, 7, and 8, and RHEL 6, 7, and 8 with a much longer support window, and I'll get to those specifics in a moment. This is backports for bug fixes and security vulnerabilities only, but anything that fits within those 3 OSs, we will backport all the way to RHEL 6 if it applies. And a big change between Liberty Linux and what used to be our expanded support offering is that there's no longer a contractual obligation to move to SUSE Linux, right? We would love you to join our environment, love you to join our family, but that's no longer a requirement. We're here specifically making this offering to allow your enterprise, your business, to take the time to do the due diligence to figure out what's the right platform to move to, and then move to it in a supportable fashion. The other part of the solution that we suggest is SUSE Manager. It gives you repository management, patch management and deployment, CVE auditing for any of the vulnerabilities that apply to your system, and I'll get to those specifics. The big key here is that there's no longer any cost for SUSE Manager. The only cost that's included is for the managed client systems. The server itself doesn't cost anything. That also is a pretty sizable change. Again, with the idea here to support your business and your infrastructure as you decide where to go in the future. So what is SUSE Liberty Linux's advantage today over trying to limp along with CentOS as it exists? By moving to Liberty Linux, you have CentOS 6 supported out through 2023, CentOS 7 out through 2027, and CentOS 8 all the way out to 2032. Those are significant gains in time of support beyond what was originally published from the CentOS or Red Hat communities. And notice that these are the same windows of support for either CentOS or Red Hat. So where does SUSE Manager fit into this picture, and why do we suggest it? SUSE Manager gives you that single pane of glass to manage most, if not all, of your Linux environments, right? There's not a single shop on the planet that's got a single Linux distro. They've all got multiples, right? You'll have Red Hat here, you'll have Ubuntu somewhere else, you'll have CentOS here, you'll maybe even have SUSE or SLES somewhere in your environment, hopefully. That with SUSE Manager, you have one pane of glass that can manage all of them. It gives you configuration management, it gives you security auditing and configuration, and it fully supports SUSE Linux Enterprise, OpenSUSE, Red Hat, CentOS, and Fedora, Debian and Ubuntu, Oracle Enterprise Linux, and Amazon Linux, all within a single pane of glass. We're the only vendor that does that today. The big piece of this is around SUSE Manager and security. The CVE audit is based off of what an individual repo contains, right? So it's not going to go out and look at what is all of Linux available for patching, but maybe that repo doesn't contain it. It's going to be vendor by vendor, distribution by distribution CVE audit. The audits only report what's installed on the system, not everything that might apply to the system. Again, as opposed to some of our competitors that will report back everything that might apply to CentOS or everything that might apply to SUSE Linux or Red Hat Linux. It only reports on what's specific to the machine. That makes it much easier to control what's going on because, if you've got a web system on the edge, it's going to report on the web vulnerabilities and fixes, but it's not going to tell you anything about the DevOps tools that aren't installed on that box. By the same token, you look at the DevOps box, it's going to tell you about what needs to be dealt with on the DevOps tool set, but it's not actually going to go out and tell you about all the web stuff that you don't have installed. It does configuration enforcement at a file contents level. So let's say you've got a splash screen that you want to log in, you can configure that and lock that down. Your NFS mounts or something like that, where you want to make sure that only certain changes are there. Even if someone goes in as root and makes the change, if it's not an authorized one, it'll roll it back, right? So really, really useful to lock your systems down and make them more secure, especially in the world of heightened cyber threats that we're in now. That's a huge play. The other thing that it brings to the table is a lot of automation. Now, SUSE Manager uses Salt as its core automation tool. It has a really nice GUI front end that allows you to do that configuration. So your level 1 and level 2 admins that may not know Salt at all can still make those automated processes viable. But the other thing it does is it imports and natively uses Ansible, Puppet, and Chef. What this means is you don't lose the investment you may already have in your infrastructure in these automation tools. You can continue to use those tools and the staff training and expertise that's already there still natively within SUSE Manager. So you centralize your tool set, but you can still use the knowledge and structures that you've already got in place. So what do the two of them bring to the table? As a pair, Liberty Linux and SUSE Manager really do function as your bridge from wherever you are now to wherever you want to be in the future. We're not about vendor lock-in. We're never telling you you have to migrate to us. Again, as I said earlier, we'd love for you to migrate to us. We think we've got a fabulous product, but we're actually here primarily to support your enterprise, to support your business so you can stay compliant, stay safe, manage your infrastructure, and get you from where you are today to some place you actually want to be in the long run. Here's a couple of links for additional resources to Liberty Linux, specifically in SUSE Manager. And other than that, thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of SUSECON Digital 2022, and I hope to see you in the future. Thank you for your time.